We break structure on monthly just to reverse and continue bullish. We break structure on monthly just to reverse and continue bullish. But this time is a little bit different. The last time that price was able to make a lower high on the monthly time frame led into our reversal. Will 2025 be the year where we see GBP JPY perform very, very well in terms of volatility, allowing us to capitalize off that? The reason I'm saying this is 2024 was pretty shaky for GBP JPY. We saw policy changes all leading into interventions as well, making it quite difficult and quite erratic. Now, I get a lot of questions about what's my analysis on GBP JPY. Are we going to reverse? Are we going to continue the bullish momentum that we've had all the way back since 2020? I'm going to break that down. Technically, what are the levels I'm looking for that can lead us to capitalize off that and trade between those moves? So I'm going to break it down, full higher time frame analysis. I do hope you guys enjoy this video. And if you do, leave a like and subscribe. You know the drill. Hate to say it. And let's enjoy this. Let's go. So GJ has had a monumental run since 2020 here, where we started this ultra loose policy, Bank of Japan, and this is not something new, right? This is not something new, but what we basically had is Bank of Japan remain with low interest rate environment, negative interest rate environment, while the rest of the world went on an aggressive rate hike. So what we saw is basically things trading against the yen were extremely bullish. I mean, GBP, since it was more hawkish environment, which is raising rates, meaning that the government is looking to support the currency, where dovish is the opposite, right? We could see GBP raise against the yen, and it was pretty simple, where you would just be looking for continuation of buys here. Pullbacks were just simply opportunity of buys. You can go back in our live streams. We live stream on YouTube. Watch back in 2023, us trading these breakouts day after day, catching these type of moves towards the upside. And you see most of the trades in there are buying opportunities, right? So you'll be able to see that, and it's extremely interesting. But as we approach into the end of 2024 was a little bit different, because although yes, in the beginning half of 2024 we did have these moves towards the upside, they were coupled with very, very aggressive interventions, such as this one here, such as another one here, and was a little bit different as price started to kind of feel that, and that is, you know, feel the impact of potential policy changes leading into Bank of Japan finally deciding to give its first rate hike, and as well as government going and being affected here. So what we're seeing is into 2025, we could potentially see a JPY pivot, right? And why am I saying that? Well, historically in the past, if you go to a monthly time frame, these are all historical pivots here. You can see where price has had monumental upside and then pivoted. We see yen strength come back in, a potential here. I'm now going to discuss maybe some factors. Should we be looking for the continuation of buys back up to these highs? Or is sells going to start to be an option here? That's what we're going to discover and talk about today leading into 2025. What are some major levels I'm looking for, etc., etc., etc. So this is actually the fundamental side, is some of the stuff that I talked about and I want to bring to YouTube. So I did talk about this in my weekly webinar that I do with the guys here. So we will be covering those points from here in terms of my weekly fundamental webinar, but we'll also look at technicals here, more on a higher time frame. But these are the fundamental factors we discussed about, right? So the main point I want to talk about is the fundamental drivers we're seeing, and then we're going to look a little bit of technical. So what can we see happen to bring in yen strength? So what does it mean when we see yen strength? Yen strength means basically GBP JPY will go down because we will see the yen strengthen against its counterparty asset, in this case, which is the GBP, right? So we will see yen potentially go down. Doesn't mean straight dump, there'll be pullbacks, but what we are seeing is signs of that happening, because if Bank of Japan are going to continue to rate hikes, actually today, on the day of filming this, if we scroll down, we did have Bank of Japan talk about those rate hikes. It's going to be a recurring theme into 2025, right? If you look at this, Japan Noda said Bank of Japan must raise interest rates gradually and should not commit to hike at a set pace, meaning that we should see interest rate hikes, right? It can happen, but they're not rushing into it. So this is going to be a reoccurring theme. And if one thing I've learned about the Bank of Japan, or about Japan's how they run their economy, is they're very sporadic. They come out, they trolls, they come out with things last minute, nothing is really planned, and they're going to keep chopping and churning. But the idea is, and the theme is, that they want to hike rates, but they don't want to do it as fast, and then all of a sudden they will do it fast. This is how Bank of Japan works. So if that theme continues, you will see huge volatility in market participants trying to price in basically that movement. They're trying to price in rates being hiked, which of course will lead to stronger yen as it tries to catch up with the rest of the world, because the rest of the world's at around, let's say, average 4 to 5% interest rate hike, where Bank of Japan is, barely in the 1%, not even 1%. So just to give you an idea, it's absolutely a huge difference. So as they start to catch up, that will strengthen the yen here, right? Second thing is, if we have geopolitical tensions start to continue, we will have safe haven flows. What does that mean? Yen is a safe haven. It's a safe haven asset. Any uncertainty, not only in geopolitical, but stock market. If you guys were to look at the stock market right now, we are at some very interesting highs. This is a weekly time frame. We are pushing on highs. At some point, this will pull back, whether it happens in 2 years, 1 year, whenever. But any uncertainty that comes from stock market, gold, etc., immediately we could see money move into either dollar, but if dollar with my second factor here, right, dollar might not be as attractive as we see trade wars, and basically also could do with yields, right? Dollar yields as well. That's a little bit more in depth. I can go into depth about that, but they can put money into US treasuries, and if the yields are not high, it's not really attractive to put money in dollars. So we can see it short term come into the yen. So now that we understand the fundamental factors, I want to get into the technical factors, because that's where things get interesting. And I want to actually bring your attention to the monthly time frame here. Monthly time frame has something very interesting. GBP/JPY loves to do what I call the monthly liquidity grab fake out. And this was a play that I used to run for a while, which is basically we break structure on monthly, such as this, right? Technically, we break structure on monthly just to reverse and continue bullish. We break structure on monthly just to reverse and continue bullish. We break structure on monthly just to reverse and continue bullish. This is a common reoccurring trend that we've seen happen. And every time we see a monthly close and people start calling a top and saying GBP/JPY should reverse, I started to get excited because this was a trend we saw. So we are triggering one of those events right now, right? And we have the monthly change of structure. But there's a big but here. And it is that this time is a little bit different. Now, that is the most dangerous word in financial literature, is this time is different. And what we have different here is we have a monthly lower high which was not made ever before. In all of these iterations, including the iteration in 2021, the iteration in 2022, and the iteration in 2023, right? Every year we have one of these iterations. In every single one of these iterations, it was all basing off a higher high, not a lower high, right? Here we just printed a higher high, then printed a lower low. We printed a higher high, printed another higher high here before, then we printed the lower low. Same scenario here, printed a higher high. But this monthly pullback, then we made a lower high and broke that. This is the monthly structure we seem to have broken here after making a lower high. Also coming from a very similar zone in the past where we've seen something pretty similar. The last time that price was able to make a lower high on the monthly time frame led into our reversal. So this is a very similar one candle pullback lower high with the structure. So if you start to go and put some of the pieces of the puzzle together, you start to find out that we have very similar bullish structure being formed. Monthly supports, monthly supports, monthly supports. We form the last monthly support. We break all-time high from that monthly support. We do a one candle pullback. Doesn't give a shit about that support the next time it visited, and we're through. Same thing here. Monthly supports, monthly supports, monthly supports. We have the last blow off top. We pull back. That pullback leads into that one candle. This kind of has a doji in it here, but it normally leads into that one candle pullback. And now we close bearish. So what does that tell me? That tells me with all the fundamental factors that I listed, if those trends continue, we can start to find GJ easily back into the 179s. 179s can be a target back for GJ to reach, right? First, we need to reach the 184. So this is what I'm going to talk about, is where I'm looking for my big trades and how am I going to look to maximize off this. Right now we're bouncing. Why are we bouncing? Well, we're seeing respect of this weekly support, first of all, technically. And also fundamentally, Bank of Japan, as I showed you today, just announced that they are slowing down on the rate hike. So market participants who've been pricing that in start to leave that case, as well as GBP strength here, definitely helping this case. But we're not going to talk about day to day. We're going to talk about analysis into 2025. Even leading into mid-2025 is where we see this could happen. So typically GJ likes to do long form consolidations. You can even scroll back. You can see here, this was a massive head and shoulders pattern, pretty straightforward, but there's examples of where GJ has long form consolidation right before breaking out. We could see something very similar on the top side, Inherently, right now, structure wise, we are still bullish, meaning we can start to create support as long as on a weekly time frame 189, 190 is respected now. GJ could easily bounce, find yourself up back towards 200. These are massive ranges, and this is what I'm talking about. These are the levels where you need to keep an eye on, because that opportunity could lead into one more lower high, and any lower high is forming into that bounce, right? Especially when we start to reach into these resistance zones, deeper 195s, deeper 197s, right? That could lead into some selling weakness. Even what we're doing right now, if we were to create a resistance here, that resistance can now find us leading lower into 184s. 184s, 185s can be the next target, especially if we have a weekly candle leaving there. But a daily candle has already broken structure. This could be the pullback for liquidity to potentially continue down, completing that, leading into next year, right? So that tells you that there's ranges are going to be made. Massive ranges are going to be made. Whether you're a swing trader, of course, you'll be looking for your zones to swing. Understand fundamentals. There could be some amazing short opportunity. And if these fundamentals, I'm looking for a sneaky JPY strength moment during next year to capitalize on shorts. And I'll be looking for short capitalization as we start to see us break in terms of my day trading. As soon as we start to leave higher time frame 190s, we could easily revisit the 185s. There's a 500 pip range there. Any type of changes of structure, daily weakness coming from highs, creating one more lower high will also create me that opportunity, right? Simple lower highs here following this. Now, in terms of intraday session trading, of course, there will be big bounces. This is how JPY works. This is how the GBP and the JPY works. It loves to play these things. We will see Bank of Japan troll, which will allow us to trade those huge pullbacks and have potential days of upside, just like we've been having 1, 2, 3 days of upside. These days of upside can offer opportunity. But inevitably, what we want to see is we want to see volatility come back in a session-to-session basis, which is what we are starting to lack but are seeing signs of recently. Because London session today, for example, was able to pull off a very nice move towards the upside. Similar thing yesterday. And this is what we were lacking back in these periods where we would have, yes, massive continuation, but session-to-session volatility was kind of lacking until one session just gave you the work. So you'd have to sit through basically boring stuff, and then you get a trending move in one day. And keep in mind, this is a 15-minute time frame. Then you sit through boring stuff, and then this type of candle comes through, news, blah, blah, blah. You know, you sit through boring stuff. So it was kind of, instead of more of a trending formation here, right? Where we have continuous moves. Yes, some sort of consolidation is going to be normal and warranted, but overall, the continuation, right? So fundamentally, there could be some factors here. There could be some interesting points that we have to keep an eye on leading into 2025 for a case of the JPY to recover itself. I've shown you the higher time frame macro factors. I will be updating you as new zones develop on the chart to be looking where we can exactly capitalize from these shorts. Obviously, you can't predict the future. We could start to form resistance from any places, but be wary about these resistances here, you know, as we start to reach into those 194s, stuff like that. That is definitely going to be zones of interest, you know, especially somewhere up here, 196s, 194s. All of these zones could be definitely interesting. And for short-term time frames, obviously losing that 190 level, losing that 190 level on a higher time frame here is going to open the doors to have some heavy downside. And I think that's what people need to be keeping an eye of, is that heavy downside. We probably do play a bounce, as that's typical. GJ likes to play a bounce, which again is another opportunity until we're ready potentially to break the range. So we could be forming a sort of maybe one more macro higher time frame head and shoulders pattern where we have kind of, you can kind of see it maybe try to form. It's not as clean as the one we had back in 2016, but just keep that in mind. Many people are super bullish on GJ. And unless the fundamental factors change, which can happen with Bank of Japan, they love to do it like that. But if we see those fundamentals that I listed out, that's why I'm making this video, to keep you alert that those are the key fundamental factors you need to be keeping an eye on. Any changes to that will lead into GBP JPY being a weak currency, and we all enjoy the buys again. We're back at all-time highs. We take buys, we look for longs. But if these factors stay in play and we continue to see inflation, very important, listen, we start to see inflation rising in Japan, that will encourage them to hike rates. And if they hike rates, then that's where you're going to see some strength come in, as well as the other factors in. So keep an eye on this. A little bit of a higher time frame analysis. People have been asking me for a higher time frame analysis. Interesting monthly candles forming so far. Like I said, potential bounces we could play into these higher levels here, which we can of course capitalize on intraday trading, but this is more of a higher time frame analysis. So keep an eye on this. Let's see into 2025 how the ranges form, how GJ gets in terms of its volatility, if it comes back in a session to session basis, and if it does, it's going to be extremely interesting and going to be fun to trade. So I look forward to that. So I hope this video has helped. If it has, let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoy the high time frame analysis. Let me know if you like these type of videos. With that being said, take care, trade sharp, and hopefully catch you guys very, very soon. Peace.